Hi, this is Susan King, veteran movie writer at the Los Angeles Times. And right now we're looking at a vintage Western that was produced by Bison. And you can see why so few silent films still exist. A lot of the problem is because of nitrate damage. As you can see, it's flickering, the image goes in and out, there's white. Nitrate was very flammable, highly volatile. It would go up in flames and literally rot in the cans. Now, this clip, some of it is better than others, so some frames weren't as affected as other frames, but it is a real problem with not only silent films, but also films from the 30s and 40s that were made in nitrate. They quit with nitrate film in the 1950s. But in the case of silent films, from 1912 to 1929, only 3,311 films of 11,000 films that were produced and distributed in the United States still exist. And only half of those exist in the original 35 millimeter release format. A lot of this has to do with this nitrate issue. Also, films were lost to fire, again, a lot of times through nitrate. Sometimes vaults would just go up in flames. This happened in the late 30s with a lot of the Fox silent movies. That's why there are not as many. Also, there was destruction of prints, negatives. People had no idea that this would be a living art form. So many films are missing. There's several archives, like we have UCLA Film and TV Archive here. We have the Academy Film Archive that from the Academy Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. There's the Library of Congress. In Washington, there's the Museum of Modern Art archive, and they are working on restoring these films and even bits of films. Sometimes they are they're done digitally. What is left of the film or the film print or if it is nitrate, it's digitally scanned, and then they work painstakingly with computers to try to restore it to its best ability. You also have to be something of a Sherlock Holmes yourself. These archivists have to be something of a Sherlock Holmes because sometimes there's scenes missing. So you always put out the word around all of the archives all around the world to see what they have. They may have a better print. They may have a 16 millimeter that has those 4 frames that you're missing. And then you try to seamlessly put all of this together. But a restoration of a silent film may be from 3 or 4 different prints. A lot of people still like the old-fashioned way that they restored film, which was photochemically. It's less expensive than doing it digitally, but because a lot of these films are so frail, the prints, the negatives are so frail, it is easier to scan them and is less causes less problems if they scan them and then do it digitally. There's several well-known films that are missing. Lon Chaney, who was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood in the 1920s, he was known as the Man of a Thousand Faces, who starred in such films as Hunchback of Notre Dame, Phantom of the Opera, He Who Gets Slapped. He and director Todd Browning, who made several really kind of creepy but wonderful movies together in the 1920s, including The Unholy Three, they made this vampire movie in 1927 called London After Midnight. It does not exist. A few years ago, before he died, I got to talk to Ray Bradbury, the famous science fiction writer, who as a little boy had seen London After Midnight and remembered it. And Great Gatsby, there was one made in 1926 with Warner Baxter, who would become the second actor to win a Best Actor Oscar for In Old Arizona. The only thing that exists of that film right now is the trailer. But films are still being found. It's remarkable. Just this past week in Los Angeles, the Ace Theater was screening the 1916 Sherlock Holmes movie starring William Gillette. It was found in the Cinema Française just last year and was restored. Other films were recently found in New Zealand. American silent films were found in New Zealand. and then brought back to the United States. Including in that was a 1927 movie directed by John Ford called Upstream, which was actually a comedy, but no one had seen this film in years. They also found a film that Alfred Hitchcock was involved in writing. What is really interesting is of the 3,311 films that survive in any form from the silent era that was produced between 1912 and 1929. 886 were discovered in other countries. And as of 2 years ago, 24% of those have come back to the United States, to the archives here. So these movies are being found. It's difficult. It's very rare that you do find them, but they are found. A few years ago, a 1910 Mary Pickford film was found like in a barn. So you never know, check out your barns to see if there's anything there.